You know how people today will do just about anything for fame? Post outrageous videos, fake scandals, even buy followers. Well, believe it or not, Hollywood's golden age wasn't all that different. Those glamorous black and white stars you see on old posters, many of them had to fight, scheme, and even bend morals just to carve out a place in Hollywood's spotlight. And let me tell you, some of the stories are shocking. Today, we're diving into the 10 golden age actors who would do absolutely anything to be famous. By the end, you might look at those iconic names a little differently. 1. Joan Crawford. Let's start with Joan Crawford. If you've ever seen her on screen, you know she oozed glamour and confidence. But here's the thing. Joan wasn't born into wealth or beauty. She actually grew up poor, working odd jobs and facing rejection over and over. Now, if you were in her shoes, what would you do? Accept your fate or completely reinvent yourself? Joan chose the second path. She changed her name, altered her backstory, and even reportedly went through painful beauty treatments just to look more Hollywood. But that wasn't all. She also worked the studio system like a chessboard, carefully picking relationships, fighting for better roles, and refusing to be sidelined. The truth is, Joan wasn't just acting in front of the camera, she was acting off it too, constantly shaping her image. And it worked. She went from a poor nobody to one of Hollywood's most unforgettable stars. 2. James Dean. Now, let's talk about James Dean. You've probably seen that famous photo of him in the red jacket from Rebel Without a Cause. Cool, rebellious, untouchable. But what most people don't know is that Dean wasn't just naturally iconic. He pushed himself to extremes for that image. He knew Hollywood loved a bad boy, so he leaned into it. He'd drive recklessly, pick fights, and play into that live fast, die young reputation. Sadly, that persona didn't just stay on screen. It bled into real life, and he died in a tragic car crash at only 24. Think about it. Dean wanted fame so badly that he essentially lived his roles off camera, blurring the line between the actor and the character. It gave him the legacy he wanted, but at a devastating price. If you were in his position, would you trade a long life for eternal fame? That's the question his story forces you to ask. 3. Judy Garland. If there's one story that really breaks your heart, it's Judy Garland's. Everyone remembers her as Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, singing over the rainbow with that sweet, hopeful voice. But behind the scenes, Judy was living a nightmare. Studios saw her as a product, not a person. They controlled what she ate, how she looked, and even when she slept. She was put on strict diets, given pills to keep her awake, and then more pills to help her sleep. Imagine being so young, still a teenager, and already trapped in that kind of cycle. Here's the sad part. Judy wanted fame, and she got it. But it came at the cost of her health, her happiness, and ultimately, her life. You can't help but wonder, if the system hadn't pushed her so hard, would she have lived longer and found peace? 4. Rock Hudson. Rock Hudson's story is very different, but just as powerful. On screen, he was the ultimate leading man, tall, handsome, charming. He starred in romantic films where every woman swooned over him. But here's the twist. Rock Hudson was gay at a time when Hollywood absolutely would not accept that truth. So what did he do? He played along. He dated women publicly, went to events with beautiful starlets, and kept his real life hidden in the shadows. Think about the pressure that must have put on him, pretending to be someone you're not, day in and day out, just so you don't lose your career. It wasn't until years later, after his tragic battle with AIDS, that the truth came out. And suddenly, people saw the price he paid for fame. A lifetime of secrecy. It makes you realize that even the most glamorous faces on the screen were often carrying heavy, invisible burdens. 5. Marilyn Monroe. And then, of course, there's Marilyn Monroe. Probably the most famous name on this entire list. Everyone saw her as the ultimate blonde bombshell. Playful, sexy, always smiling. But behind that image was a woman who worked endlessly to create and maintain it. Marilyn wasn't born Marilyn. She was Norma Jean, an ordinary girl who had a tough childhood. She studied acting, trained her voice, and learned how to transform herself into a fantasy for the camera. But here's what most people don't realize. That dumb blonde act she played? That was her smartest move. She leaned into the stereotype because she knew it made her unforgettable. Still, the pressure was crushing. She dealt with failed relationships, constant scrutiny, and battles with her own mental health. In the end, the very fame she fought so hard for became the thing that consumed her. That's just half the list. In the next part, we'll look at 5 more stars who proved that the golden age of Hollywood wasn't just about glitz and glamour. It was also about sacrifice, secrets, and survival. Let's talk about Jean Harlow, Hollywood's original blonde bombshell. She was dazzling, glamorous, and for a short time, she ruled the box office. But her story is probably one of the most tragic. Jean became a superstar in her early 20s. Her beauty was her ticket to fame, but it was also her curse. She was typecast, exploited, and pushed into roles that turned her into a symbol more than a person. She wanted to be taken seriously, but Hollywood didn't want serious Jean. They just wanted the blonde bombshell. Then, shockingly, at just 26 years old, she died from kidney failure. Think about that. Gone before she even had a chance to break free from the role Hollywood forced on her. Fans cried, tabloids feasted on the tragedy, and the industry moved on. Her story is a harsh reminder. In Hollywood's golden age, even legends were disposable. 7. Montgomery Clift. Montgomery Clift was Hollywood's golden boy. Good-looking, talented, and the kind of actor who could steal a scene without even trying. But what made him so magnetic on screen was also what tormented him in private. He was a perfectionist, constantly doubting himself and feeling like he wasn't enough no matter how much the world adored him. To cope, he leaned on alcohol and pills, slowly slipping into a cycle he couldn't break. If you've ever felt like you were pretending to be stronger than you really are, you'd understand what Monty lived through every day. After a terrible car accident, his career and his confidence took a sharp turn downward. He kept acting, but the sparkle that once made him unstoppable was fading. His story is a haunting reminder that even those who look untouchable on screen can be falling apart behind closed doors. 8. Elizabeth Taylor. Elizabeth Taylor was Hollywood royalty. The violet eyes, the jewels, the marriages. 8 of them, to 7 different men. To the public, it looked like she was living a life of pure excess. But if you were Elizabeth, you'd know the reality was much different. From the time she was a child, she was thrown into the spotlight. By the time most kids are learning who they are, she was already being molded into Liz Taylor the star. Fame became her identity, and once you're trapped in that cycle, how do you separate your real self from the image? Her love life was constantly ridiculed, her health struggles were splashed across headlines, and yet she had to walk into every film set like she was untouchable. You think juggling your personal life is hard? Try doing it while millions of people judge your every mistake. Fame gave her diamonds, but it also made her bleed. 9. Clark Gable. Now, you've probably seen Gone with the Wind. Clark Gable, Rhett Butler, suave, confident, the ultimate leading man. But here's what you didn't know. Clark's public charm was hiding a private storm. He grew up tough, far from glamorous Hollywood, and once he made it, he never shook off that feeling of being an outsider. The studios wanted him to play this untouchable ladies' man, but inside, he carried insecurities he never admitted to anyone. When his wife, actress Carole Lombard, died in a plane crash, something in him broke. People saw the same Clark Gable on screen, but the real man behind it was drowning in grief. Think about that for a second. The man everyone thought had it all spent much of his life carrying around a pain he couldn't fix, and no spotlight can hide that. 10. Charlie Chaplin. Charlie Chaplin may have been Hollywood's first true global superstar, but his path wasn't paved with ease. Growing up in extreme poverty in London, Chaplin knew what it meant to go hungry and homeless as a child. When he finally made it to Hollywood, he used his comedy to mask a deeper pain. His little tramp character, poor, awkward, but endlessly hopeful, was really a reflection of his own struggles. But success brought its own shadows. He faced endless controversies over his politics, relationships, and personal life. In fact, the US government even tried to exile him during the Red Scare. Imagine building an empire of laughter, only to become one of America's most controversial figures. Chaplin's story shows us that even the funniest man in the world carried heartbreak behind his smile. So there you have it. 10 actors who defined Hollywood's golden age, but at a cost you and I wouldn't wish on anyone. They had the fame, the lights, the adoration, but what they lost was far more human: freedom, love, peace of mind. When you think about it, these weren't just stars. They were people trapped in a system that valued their shine more than their souls. And maybe the real lesson here is this: fame isn't free. Someone always pays the price.